Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Monday evening webinar. If you're joining us from Asia, it is 9 p.m. If you are joining me from the United States, good morning. And if you're joining us from Europe, good afternoon. I'm so happy to see you all here. While I'm looking a little bit more perky than usual today because I'm happy, I'm actually falling asleep because I didn't sleep too well. I've got so many things that I'm planning for all of you, and I can't wait to announce them. So we do have a really exciting presentation today, and what's even more exciting is we're going to have a really wild gift next week on our call, and I want to make sure that everybody knows about it. We're going to be giving away 2 bottles of Helichrysum next week. So 2 bottles of Helichrysum next week. Get your people on the call. I know, Sihan, I see you there. So exciting. We are going to be talking today about essential oil origins. Essential oil origins. Super important topic, everyone, because I know there are a lot of essential oil companies out there. You're hearing about them more and more. You see essential oils in your supermarkets and in your big box retailers. They're available online. They cannot guarantee quality. And one of the things I want the conversation to be about with us is quality. Now, you have the huge benefit, if you live in Asia, that most people understand what herbs are all about. There's a long tradition of traditional Chinese medicine. It's not a mystery to people what herbs can be used for. And the translation between herbs and essential oils, which are basically liquid herbs and plants, is a very easy conversation. It's something that you can begin to talk to people about all the time. The other thing that I really like when we talk about essential oils versus herbs, we can talk about concentration and power. They are not only absorbed quickly, they are highly concentrated, which also makes them wonderful candidates for using economically. If you are on a budget, essential oils are the thing for you. If you have a family, essential oils are also a wonderful addition to your medicine cabinet because you can use them at all different levels. So when we talk about essential oils, we also want to talk about where are they coming from, how are they sourced, and how are they prepared. And I think there are a lot of companies that are actually selling essential oils but are not willing or able to have that conversation because really for them, that's a secret. And ours is not a secret. doTERRA is actually super transparent. Very willing and able to give us information about their processes and their locations and their sources. And that's part of the beauty of the company that we're working with and the products that we love. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. I hope this is information that you've never heard before. Actually, I have not done this presentation before. I know in 2 weeks I'm going to be repeating a presentation that I did for you in January, which was called The Gems of the Essential Oil World. And some of you saw me do that live in January when I was in Singapore, but it was sort of at the end of my tour in Singapore. I had lost my voice, and some of you I know didn't get a chance to see it at that time, and I don't think it was recorded. So in 2 weeks from now, I'm going to be redoing that presentation. I did send out a list of the presentations for the month through the end of April, and you should be using that list and actually talking to people about what's coming up. But the thing that I didn't put on that list, but I want you to know about, is that we are going to be giving away 2 bottles of Helichrysum next week. Super important. Okay, so let me share my screen with you, and then let's get started. Okay, so let's talk about essential oil origins. Here we go. Oops. Okay, this is a beautiful field in Europe, a lavender field. Many of you may know that France is famous for its lavender. But France has had various problems with its lavender fields. Number one is over a period of about 10 years, they've had problems with fungus and flooding. And you may know that the region of France where lavender is grown is actually fairly dry. It's grown in the southern regions of France, which are rocky and dry, which is also where many of their very good wines come from. If you've ever had the honor or the privilege to visit that region, you know, as you drive through that area, it's very mountainous, and you can, as far as the eye can see, you can see lavender fields. I had the great privilege to go there and drive through that region, and just the beauty and the majesty of the fields and the mountains is just something to behold. So if you haven't put it on your bucket list yet, I would highly encourage you to do so. Having said that, while the French are really the granddaddies of lavender and lavender oils and lavender products, there are very high quality lavenders, in fact, and very sturdy lavenders coming out of places like Bulgaria and other Eastern European regions. You may know that doTERRA is actively sourcing, especially our flower oils, from Bulgaria, because we do have a wonderful source there, and we have set up a distillery, and we're going to talk about that in a little while. But here's a lovely picture of the lavender about to bloom. So where do essential oils come from and how are they made? On the left-hand side, you can see a photograph of a jasmine flower, and the right-hand side is our wonderful Jasmine Touch Roll-On. The jasmine flower is fairly delicate, and it actually takes pounds and pounds, or kilos and kilos, if you will, to make just a single bottle of jasmine oil. The other thing that we have to be very conscious of is, when we're talking specifically about flowers, their delicacy, their ability to bruise very easily when we're working just with the petals. They have to, large quantities have to be harvested and carried and then distilled. It is a very labor-intensive operation. The jasmine flower is no different. On the doTERRA website, there is a beautiful video of actually jasmine flowers being harvested, and the wonderful women who have dedicated their lives to picking the flowers and gathering them and then bringing them to the distiller, and how doTERRA has very actively gone into that region to make sure that we are receiving that product, and also acting in a conscientious and responsible way with the communities in which we are doing business. So we know that essential oils come from the leaves or the fruit or the flowers. They also come from the stems, the roots. All different sorts of parts of the plant are distilled for different reasons. So for example, on the far left, I believe that's actually a fresh lemon, but if you are thinking about petitgrain, petitgrain is an oil that comes from the fruit of the bitter orange tree. And we also get 2 other oils from that tree. And when we think about different oils coming from the same plant, I want you to think for a minute about perhaps a lemon tree in your backyard. You might actually use the lemon fruit for lemonade. You might use the lemon peel for flavoring in a cake or in some other food. And then you would actually be able to get another oil from either the lemon leaves or the lemon root, plant root, or the bark. So we really do use all the parts of the plant, and we try not to waste anything. And doTERRA is conscientious about, when we do distill our products, what are we doing with the remains after those products have been used? Are we recycling them and we're reusing them as fertilizers on the farms that we work with? Okay, what role do essential oils play in plant life? They give a plant its aroma, of course. They contain defensive properties that protect the plant from predators. They're important for plant pollination and plant reproductive processes, and they can help a plant heal itself when injured. So the essential oils are essential, of course, for the plant, and then, of course, for us once they are distilled. So how are they made? They're extracted. The extraction process from their plant parts is a delicate process. And not all essential oils are created equal. Several factors can influence the quality of an essential oil. So you can see here an enormous amount of plant material being put into a giant distillery. That top is going to be lowered down and then clamped shut. And just like you would boil any sort of green on your stove, whether it be spinach or another type of green, the leaves would begin to release their fragrance, release some of their distinctive properties, and then a tube connected to the top. And you can see that steel tube at the top there would siphon off the condensation that collects at the top of the vessel, and then all of the essential oils and the water would be collected in a separate container. The oil separates from the water just like it does when we prepare salad dressing or anything else, and the oil would float on top of the water. That oil is what we have in our bottles of essential oil. So we have a 3-step process. Number 1 is planting and growing, where we work closely with the farmers and the harvesters. We do not have our own farms, but I will tell you, neither does anyone else. So if you're talking to someone in the industry and they say, our company has its own farms, really that's not true. And that's really a marketing ploy that they're using to try to make people think that they are using a process. They're controlling the process from the beginning to the end. If anything, doTERRA has stepped out of the farming business as far out as we possibly can to make sure that the people who really know about their own plants are growing, harvesting, treating, and taking care of the plants that we so know and love. Second step is obviously harvesting. And the 2 people that you see here look like they're either harvesting bitter orange or wild orange. It might be wild orange. This might be in the Dominican Republic. I like the fact it's called Rio Citrus. I don't know if you can read their hats. Makes me think that there might be somewhere in Latin America. And then finally, distillation. Most of our oils are steam distilled. And as I explained to you before, that giant pot where the gentleman has his 2 hands on the pot on the right-hand side is a steam distiller, as is the smaller distillation pot sort of to his left between the 2 gentlemen. So it, depending on what the product is, that will determine how much plant product will be used to get our essential oil. Let's talk a little bit about planting and growing first. So, and we're going to use different oils as highlights. It looks to me now that the first oil that I showed you, the first plant that I showed you, was actually bergamot. Sometimes it's pronounced bergamot, as the French do, or bergamot. Either one is fine. Our sourcing location is Reggio di Calabria in Italy, and the geographic location of Reggio di Calabria provides the perfect conditions for growing bergamot fruit. Positioned close to the ocean, the acidic soil and fresh sea air actually strengthen the bergamot trees, allowing them to produce the best possible bergamot. What's interesting is there had been a movement at one time to try to grow different plants all over the world. So you would see people trying to grow lavender in Canada or in Oregon. But what we know now, or Utah for that matter, and what we know now is there really is a benefit to keeping the plants in their natural habitat and in their natural territory. Just like wine, and I know some of you are wine drinkers and some of you may not be, but I'll give you a little tip on wine. Very small one, is that the best wines come from certain regions. And that's because for generations, for centuries even, the plants have been grown in that soil, and the acidity, the amount of sun, the amount of rain, all help to influence exactly what type of product is produced. And the French call that terroir. Terroir is basically a way of saying this plant belongs here and this is its home and it's happy here and it grows best here. And obviously Reggio di Calabria is a place that bergamot grows best. When we talk about harvesting, the plant parts must be harvested during the peak harvest time. The chemical profile of the plant must be preserved during harvest, and proper harvesting methods must be maintained. So here's one of the wonderful women who is harvesting jasmine. You can see in the photograph behind her really just tiny dots of jasmine flowers, and she's picking the jasmine flowers by hand off each one of those plants. And if you have the time and you can actually watch that video, you'd love it. So this lady is called Hele, and you want to meet Hele, a veteran harvester from Egypt. She starts her jasmine harvest with a headlamp and basket at 2:30 a.m. Part of the reason that moms do these jobs is that they start early and they harvest until they have to get back home to get their children ready for school. So they would return home and then begin to perhaps cook breakfast, get their children ready, and send them off to school. And the money, the income that they earn from harvesting actually provides for their families. So this is honorable work, folks, and it is also supporting other families. So you can feel confident that when you purchase a bottle of jasmine oil, or any plant oil for that matter, that you are supporting families throughout the world. Let's talk a little bit about the distillation process. I gave you a little bit of or the processing process. Talked a little bit about distillation, and I showed you how it worked. So you can see, let's look at the left first, the steam boiler. So this is a 3-part boiler, but some of them are not done in this way. So you can see on the far left-hand side, the steam boiler creating the heat, and that's providing the steam underneath the plant material through that tube. There's a removable lid. The plant material is it's not exactly floating in water, but it is, steam is passing through it. The condensation would collect on the top of the lid, on the removable lid, just like it would collect when you are cooking something on your own stove. If you lift up the lid of your pot, you know the little dots of water there are steam condensation. The tube from the top is siphoning off that condensation, and you can see it's coming down into that tube, and then it's being condensed and cooled. This is a little bit more sophisticated than some of the condensers or some of the distillers that I've seen in the past. And then the oil obviously drops into a container. There is a condensate water on the top, on the bottom, and the oil on the top, and that's our oil. When plant material is cold pressed, and that's true for all of our citrus essential oils, we call it either cold pressing or cold expression. There is a corkscrew rasper. So the plant material, so in this case lemons, would roll through this processor and be kind of chopped up, if you will, and pressed. And then the drum containing the oil-water mixture would drop into one side, and then finally the oil would be separated from water by pressure or centrifuge. Again, because oils are lighter than water and would float and would be easy to separate out. Let's talk about testing. Super important. I was recently talking with a chiropractor, and he said, that he was going to use a different sort of oil that he had found in his local Walmart because it was the same. And I thought, oh no, it's not the same at all. And I began to open the conversation with him about testing and about purity and about certification. And I saw the light go off in his eyes as he realized, oh, well, maybe the thing that he had just bought at half the price was really not even worth half the price. So we want to talk a little bit about what doTERRA does for testing. The 2 goals of essential oil testing are to verify potency and help identify the chemical composition of the oil and determine the potency and properties of the oil. And the second thing that testing does is it ensures purity. It helps to ensure that the oil is free of harmful contaminants or synthetic components that could decrease the oil's efficacy or have dangerous effects. And this is actually very common in the industry. Companies either adding boosters, adding or taking things away, adding chemical constituents to increase the volume of their oil so they don't have to put as much natural product into the bottle, and that can be actually very toxic for you and for your family. Here's Emily Wright in the photograph at the left with one of the growers. We talk about responsible sourcing and production. Cutting corners can lower the safety, efficacy, and quality of an oil. It's important to build a network of professionals, growers, distillers, scientists, etc., and responsible practices ensure fair treatment of growers and distillers and protect the environment. So I don't doubt that some of the companies that are out there are actually trying to source essential oils. But as this doTERRA grows, it becomes more and more difficult for them to find responsible solutions, and they may need to cut corners just because the amount of product is just not available on the market. So doTERRA is becoming a dominant force, if not the dominant force. We are the largest essential oil company now in the world, and we're pushing everyone else to the margins. That's not a bad thing. It also means that we are, as we've heard the expression in English, a rising tide raises all boats. Many companies are kind of tagging along with us and trying to stay in the game, but they're also going to have to increase their productivity, increase their purity, increase their testing if they're really going to stay competitive. But in the meantime, doTERRA really is setting a standard for everybody in the industry. The doTERRA Botanical Network, we work with growers and distillers in over 40 countries. With years of experience, local growers and distillers help produce the best essential oils. We're not trying to substitute our knowledge or what we think would be our knowledge for years and years of experience that many of the local growers have. And growing plants in their natural habitat contributes to high quality essential oils. So let's look at our botanical oils here for a second. And I love this map. This is a map of the world. I'm going to start with the, I think I'm going to start with the right-hand side because that's a little bit closer to you folks. I'm talking to you, many of you are in Asia. So you see there are products being sourced in Indonesia and Australia and Sri Lanka, patchouli from Indonesia, melaleuca from Australia, and ginger from Sri Lanka. From India, we're getting sandalwood and lemongrass. What's interesting is it takes about 5 to 7 days to harvest a 100-acre lemongrass plantation, which is located 5 miles up the mountain and can only be reached by foot. The farmers make the 10-mile round trip several times a day while carrying harvested lemongrass bulks on their heads downhill. And if you've ever seen lemongrass, and I know many of you have, it's kind of a long stalk. It's a little scratchy. I don't know, it must be very uncomfortable to carry such large bulks on your head. I'm sure that the people that carry it have become accustomed to doing so. But just to value, as we look at this tiny bottle, just what goes into bringing us the products that we know and love. I personally use lemongrass every day. I take a couple of drops of it in a capsule. It's wonderful for controlling cholesterol. I don't have high cholesterol, but I want to keep my cholesterol in a normal range as I begin to age, and that's a wonderful way to do it. Looking at the bottom of the greenish square, you see frankincense and Madagascar, both harvested from Africa, ylang ylang from all the way in the south in the island off of the coast of Africa, and frankincense from Somalia. The harvested resin is hand sorted and separated by grade, color, size, and clarity. This particular job provides employment opportunities for many women in the area. And then if we go up to the top and we start looking at Europe, we can see juniper berry. Essential oil comes from the actual berry of the plant. I actually have a small juniper berry bush outside of my house, not big enough to be able to source any sort of essential oil, but when I see those little berries there, I recognize it right away. Helichrysum, that's going to be our prize for next week. Coming from Corsica. The plant has to grow for 3 to 7 years before the essential oil can be collected. And after 7 years, the plant must be completely replanted and start the whole process over. Fascinating, but that also gives us a little insight into why Helichrysum is so pricey and why it's only sold in 5 milliliter bottles. Vetiver. So we're moving now to the left. A large truck packed with vetiver produces about 6 gallons of essential oils. And for those of you who are not familiar with what a gallon is, it would be approximately 8 liters, a little less actually than 8 liters of essential oil. So look at that giant truck. and producing only about, four times six, 24 liters, 24 liters, excuse me. A gallon is actually 4 liters, so that would be 24 liters, but still not very much essential oil for that huge truck of plant product. Looking down into South America or Central America, we see cardamom coming from Guatemala. Several 100,000 families cultivate cardamom in Guatemala, which makes it the biggest producer of seed and essential oil in the world. In the Dominican Republic, we actually get our wild orange. And there's, of course, the big star with the doTERRA headquarters. And up at the top in the United States, peppermint. Peppermint is grown in the northwestern region of the U.S. and contains high natural levels of menthol. And this is just a few of the essential oils, as you know, that we produce and we sell and we source throughout the world. But this is giving you a good idea of some of the partnerships that we have. And as you look at those pictures and the people that are working, whether they're digging or carrying or sorting, you know that they are dedicated to their work. And I hope that each one of you have a moment to just reflect on all the people that it takes to bring our products to market. And so it is really our responsibility to share those products and to support those people each and every day. But what a wonderful glimpse, if you will, of our botanical network. Okay, let's talk about co-impact sourcing. I actually haven't mentioned the actual words co-impact sourcing, but this is what this process is called. So growers, often unorganized with limited access to information and layers of middlemen, are now organized into cooperatives with training, capacity building, and coordinated services. They have limited, before we are able to work cooperatively with them, they often have limited resources and capacity, harvesting immature plants out of season, and little incentive to produce higher quality because they need to get those plants to market. Once we're able to work together, they often have improved growing and harvesting practices to achieve optimal oil yield and ensure sustainability. So we are not only helping them to grow in a more sustainable way, but that their yield actually becomes higher so that they too can earn a living wage. Beforehand, their varying plant and oil quality makes them subject to volatile market pricing. If they have a good harvest, they would earn more, but if they have a poor harvest, then obviously they're not able to earn as much as they need to support their families. But afterwards, they're frequently able to achieve consistent, higher quality oil, which growers receive fair and predictable pricing from a long-term buyer, which is doTERRA. And doTERRA Healing Hands funds projects to benefit the growers' communities for improved overall livelihoods. For those of you who have been working with doTERRA for a while, you know that we have worked to build schools and clinics and wells and many different sanitation and growing projects throughout the world each and every time that we begin to work in a region. And so co-impact sourcing, for me at least, is a key reason why I'm using doTERRA. Here's a last look at a mom sharing a bottle of oil with her son. What I like about this image is it says two things. From all of those people that are working behind the scenes, really what it comes down to is that single drop of oil and you either using it yourself or sharing it with another person. And knowing in your heart that as you do this, you're producing something honorable. I have to say, when I take a medicine, or when I did take a medicine off the counter, whether it was an aspirin or a Panadol or whatever it was, I never had that sense that I was supporting anyone other than perhaps a chemical company. And while there are people that are working in chemical companies that do honorable work and are supporting their families, I feel like that the process that we go through to produce our essential oils is so much more fundamental, and that we're reaching down into communities that otherwise could not be served by any other means. So please know that your single drop is really supporting so many other people. So I'm going to open it up for questions for about a minute. You may have some questions about a particular oil that you are using, and I'm happy to answer questions like that. You can actually type the questions in the chat and I will answer them at the end of the call, because we may not be able to stop the share and then get restarted. So So please, if you have questions about your particular oil or an oil that you're using, please type them in the chat and we'll get to them at the end when we announce the winners of today's calls, of today's call. So we have a very special announcement today. I had alluded to it last time I was on the call. I want to make sure that everybody is aware of what's going on. Today is April 9th. Yes, Monday, April 9th. And in less than 1 month from today, I am going to beginning something that's called the Amazing Race National Tour. The Amazing Race National Tour. And the reason we're calling it the Amazing Race is that we're doing it really fast, and it's a national tour because we're going to be hitting multiple cities in just a single country. And my hat really goes off to the men and women that are putting this tour together. They're working very hard behind the scenes to make sure that I'm going to be at the right place at the right time on the right flight and have a place to sleep and put down my luggage if I need to and take a shower. And so thank you to everybody who's putting this together. And for those of you who are not living in this country, I want you to think very carefully about who you do know, because this is a unique opportunity and has never been done before. The other thing that you should know is that Will Halterman and the U.S. doTERRA are supporting us in this tour effort. And we think that Will Halterman actually will be visiting us on the last day of the tour. But I will be in each of the cities of the tour, and hopefully you will be there too. As a result of announcing the Amazing Race National Tour, we do have 4 live and open events where you can send as many people as you need to. There is a small fee for each event because they are all being held in hotels and convention centers, really expecting a big crowd. So the Amazing Race National Tour, I am going to, if you haven't guessed already, the Philippines. So on May 3rd, I will be in Legazpi City. I arrive in the Philippines actually on the morning of the 2nd to do some private meetings and so on. If you know anybody who's going to be there, we're making 4 stops. So the first stop is Legazpi City, and I will be there on May 3rd, and we'll be providing all of this information over the next 24 hours, links that you can sign up. I would love it if you would join me. If you cannot make all the stops on the tour, even if you stop in for a couple of days or you meet me in Manila, I would love to see you. So first stop, Legazpi City on May 3rd. On May 4th, we'll be in Cebu. I have to tell you, as I look at these pictures, I don't know if I've ever been to such a beautiful beach. I've been to many beaches in my life, but this beach just looks lovely. And while I know I'm not going to be lounging on the beach, I hope I get a chance to get outside. For those of you who are from Cebu or have family there, I hear that this is a wonderful place and that the Philippines in general is exploding. While it is still a global access country, doTERRA is saying that the Philippines will open before the end of the year. And that would mean an office and support and shipping and everything else. So please get your toe in the water before the office opens. Many of you were involved in the Singapore opening, you were involved in the Malaysia opening, and now's your chance to be involved and maybe even take a founder spot in the Philippines. Wouldn't that be exciting? Next up on the tour is Davao City. Davao City on May 5th. I've never been to Davao, and if we look at the map, which we're going to look at in a second, I'm sort of going south, 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 and then coming back up to Manila. Davao City on May 5th. And finally, on May 6th, I'm going to be in Manila. I'll be teaching in each one of those cities along with my colleague, Dr. Mario Brizuela, and his wonderful group of leaders that have been growing the business really through amazing perseverance, bringing in the products, unpacking them, shipping them. It's been quite an adventure over the last year, really, to get this up and running, and to put this tour together is much to their credit. The only thing I'm doing, I guess, is showing up and speaking, but I'm very excited to be doing that, and I can't wait to go. So if you look at the Philippines, as you can see, I'm going to be landing in Manila on the 2nd of May, and then I'll be traveling south, 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 and then finally back up to Manila for that last speaking engagement. So 4 public engagements on the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. I'm sorry, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th. And then back in Manila, and then leaving very early on the morning of the 8th. So if you do have people in that area that would like to meet with me, you all have my contact information. Please send them my way. So really exciting, amazing race, national tour. Never done anything like this before. I think it's going to be wonderful. For those of you who are in Malaysia, you are super close. Please come and see me. I would love to see you there. And if you have contacts, please come and bring them on over. We're going to have a very exciting, very vibrant tour. I was in Manila in January, and they put together quite an event, about 200 people in a convention center. And I know that we're going to be getting really big numbers while we're there. So please join us. So I'm going to actually stop the share now. I'm going to open it up to questions, whether you have questions about the tour, or you have questions about anything that was covered in the presentation. And actually, I think I'm going to stop the recording now, and then I'll announce the winners at the end. So hold on for me one second.